Good morning. We have forgiveness and finance. Hey, Sarah. Combined in the diffuser. Hi, Cynthia, Nina, and Gorgeous Lemon, and Michelle. Hi, you guys. Hi. I got to working on stuff and totally lost track of time. Good morning. See if we can get some of that light down. You guys, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was horrible. There's a new blog post on the website that came from, waking up at 3 in the morning. Good morning, everybody. Ugh. You can find the website. It's caddyshackdesigns.com, spelled with T's. Oh, you too? Oh. Hi, Erin. How are you enjoying your time off? caddyshackdesigns.com. There's a new blog post up today that actually came, I believe, triggered by the forgiveness oil. I bet it is. Time off is awesome. It's so fun to stay home and sleep. Oh, there's a new blog post up today on the website at caddyshackdesigns.com. I woke up at 3 o'clock. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let me see if I can get this light turned off. Oh, nope. I got a weird light coming. Oh, I know what it is. The overhead light's on. Hang on just a second. Whoops. Ow. Woo. Almost took a digger. Thank you. I'm glad I was just enough off camera. I don't think you guys saw me trip. If you did see me trip, don't tell me, because how embarrassing. Okay, let's see. So, new blog post up, caddyshackdesigns.com, last day to register for girls. Okay, good. And if you did, thank you for lying to me. This is the last day you can sign up for the girls workshop. I decided to add a mini mala for the girls, or prayer beads, or affirmation beads, whatever you want to call them, or a bracelet for their essential oils to the girls package. Plus, they're getting a paperback of the book, so they're getting hooked up. And that website for the girls is idecide.eventbrite.com. So there you go. That's all the business I want to talk about today. We're finishing up, 13 to 16, but if you know a 12-year-old who emotionally is advanced or is old soul type of kid, I would consider that. I have one who's considering it, who's 12, but she's an old soul type kid. And then if you have a 17-year-old that's a little immature, I would consider that too. A young soul, so to speak. Hi, Linda. If you're 40 and still acting like a 17 or 16-year-old, we could talk. Just kidding. If you're 40 and still acting like a 16-year-old, that's your own problem. I can't help you with that. Okay, be safe. We're going to be finished with this pretty soon. Yeah, probably it's good for siblings to take it separate, so they can feel like they're not in competition with each other. Even twins, I would say, take it separately. When the twins get older, I'm sure that we're going to have them take. Yeah, we just need to find another boy to go with each of your boys. I'll start advertising, Michelle. It can't hurt. Yeah, I do. I agree, Tanya. I'll put something together for a boys' workshop and start tossing it out there. If we can find, one boy to go with your one boy and another boy to go with your one boy, we can figure this out, I'm sure. So let me work on that. I'll put that together. We're going to be finishing up this, sadly, probably in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. Hi, Angela. Oh, Kyle is the biggest source of frustration. And we're going to be moving on to Mind Body Code by Dr. Mario Martinez. You don't need to buy it if you don't want to. He talks a lot about the cultural implications on our belief systems. Good morning. So mind-body connection will come when we're done with Big Magic or the Tao, whichever comes first. And then our replacement book for that will be Marianne Williamson's Everyday Grace. Yeah. So the Mind Body Code is a bit more sciencey, which I really am enjoying it. And Everyday Grace is a bit more Course in Miracles, because it's Marianne Williamson, so it's Course in Miracles based with without a lot of that language, which we'll translate it if we need to. It's just a great book. It has some really nice stuff in it. About gratitude and forgiveness and stuff. I know it's going to be sad to finish it. We're all going to have to go into mourning when we finish Big Magic. So, speaking of that, let's read. We're about to finish. We're about to start the last section. So this is the last chapter in the third section. I think it's divided into 4 sections. So lastly, this in the section on persistence. So we've gone through, we started with enchantment, then we went to permission. Now we're wrapping up the section on persistence. Persistence, oh my gosh, I can't stress that persistence enough. Hey, Catherine. So lastly, this. Many years ago, my Uncle Nick went to see the eminent American writer Richard Ford give a talk at a bookstore in Washington, D.C. During the Q&A, a middle-aged man in the audience said something like this. Mr. Ford, you and I have much in common. Just like you have been writing short stories and novels my whole life, we're about the same age with the same background, and we write about the same themes. The only difference is you've become a celebrated man of letters, and I, despite decades of effort, have never been published. This is heartbreaking to me. My spirit has been crushed by all the rejection and disappointment. I wonder if you have any advice for me, but please, sir, whatever you do, don't tell me to persevere, because that's the only thing people ever tell me to do, and hearing that only makes me feel worse. Now, I wasn't there, and I don't know Richard Ford personally, but according to my uncle, who is a good reporter, Ford replied, Sir, I am sorry for your disappointment. Please believe me, I would never insult you by simply telling you to persevere. I can't even imagine how discouraging that would be to hear after all these years of rejection. In fact, I will tell you something else, something that may surprise you. I'm going to tell you to quit. The audience froze. What kind of encouragement was this? Ford went on, I say this to you only because writing is clearly bringing you no pleasure. It is only bringing you pain. Our time on earth is short and should be enjoyed. You should leave this dream behind and go find something else to do with your life. Travel, take up new hobbies, spend time with your family and friends, relax. But don't write anymore, because it's obviously killing you. There was a long silence. Then Ford smiled and added, almost as an afterthought, However, I will say this. If you happen to discover after a few years away from writing that you've found nothing that takes its place in your life, nothing that fascinates you, moves you, or inspires you to the same degree that writing once did, well, then, sir, I'm afraid you will have no choice but to persevere. That kind of have to in your hobbies or your profession or your purpose in life, like I think we talked about that a few weeks ago. If someone told you that you could never do what it is you enjoy doing again, would you, or what it is you're considering doing for a living, would you be sad about it? Or would you fight them tooth and nail over it? And if you would, then you need to stick with it. And if you'd be like, whatever, then, you're probably wasting your time. You probably might need to take a career test or something, or see a career counselor, and maybe find something that's a bit more passionate for you. Because I've tried to stop writing, and I can't do it. I can quit for a couple of weeks, but then it's just such an ingrained thing, even if it never goes anywhere ever, I can't not do it. I can quit drawing for weeks on end. I can quit playing my ukulele, or I don't have a guitar right now, but I can quit music. I'll go back to it, but it's not like I'm going to die if I never go back to it. But writing is like that. And teaching, or the workshop things that I do feel like that. That I would fight somebody if they told me I couldn't do them. I wouldn't know how not to do them. Even if I didn't do it in a workshop format, even if I was just doing it informally, talking to people, I don't know how to not do what I do, because it just is. So, let's move into the section on trust. It's our last section. I kind of feel like crying already. We're not even at the end yet. Trust. Trust that your passion is worthwhile. Trust that whatever you're drawn to explore needs to be explored, for no other reason than to be explored. Not that it's necessarily going to bring you money. Not that it's necessarily going to take you anywhere. There's something, you wouldn't be interested in exploring a topic if there wasn't something in it for you, which, by the way, before I forget, yesterday we started the 7-day drop it thing, or some of us did, the 7-day drop it, and I was having a conversation with someone. When you guys contact me privately, I feel really uncomfortable saying who I was talking to. But if you want to out yourself, that's fine. But I did have a fairly long conversation yesterday with somebody about how much she was realizing how much time was in her head thinking about the subject she decided to drop for 7 days. 7 days. Same thing for me. Everything I think of, generally speaking, has a follow-up thought related to finance. So even though I'm using a finance oil for a few weeks, okay, yeah, I'm never comfortable doing that, because I don't know if someone wants to remain private, and I always want to be respectful of people's privacy. So I won't ever out you, but you can out yourself. In just one day, you loved not thinking about it. Was it money, Tanya? You don't have to say, but are you dropping money for 7 days? It's very difficult. It's pain. Okay. That's a hard one too. I should send you a pain blend. Whenever I think about a project, the next thought, or the next third thought, is something related to finance. Anything I think about doing, there's an underlying component of finance, and I'm really not happy about it. It's to drop thinking about your chronic think about thing for 7 days. So whatever bone you chew on a chronic basis, drop it for 7 days. Just don't think about it. And you can't not think about it. But as you become aware that you're thinking about it, divert your attention to something else. I told Juliana I was going to have to make a list. Like, I need a list to carry with me of other things I can think about that don't have anything related to do with finance or money or any kind of budgeting or any kind of debt relief, anything like that. I just want to drop it for 7 days, because it doesn't do me any good to think about it all the time like that. And it's influencing. It is. It is. Well, jump on board. It's really hard. So, things that I can think about instead of money are numerous. I could go brush a cat. I could take a walk. I could take I could make something with the oils. I could make some bath products. Yeah, I'm having to do money too, because it's so present on my mind. And I knew that, but when I was doing it yesterday and talking to Juliana, I was like, I knew it, but I didn't know how bad it is, how pervasive it is. I hope so. It came from an email I got from Danielle Laporte that had a truth bomb in it that's not in the truth bomb deck that I can find. But it said, stop thinking about it for a week. roughly. And I was like, oh, okay, I could try that. I could try not thinking about it for a week. Not thinking about it in the way that I think about it, which is obsessive and unhealthy. And probably blocking for me from the very thing that I need. But I wasn't aware until yesterday how pervasive it is. Like, even taking a walk. So our property, our road ends in the national forest. Yeah. I would see that as still thinking about it. Still putting energy there. Yeah, I probably. I guess it depends on how you feel. My thinking about money is generally in the not enoughness zone that I'd like to get away from. I'd like to spend more time either not thinking about it at all, unless I'm, needing to pay a bill or needing to actually think about it. But to not think about it in relation to everything else that I think about. So our road is from the main road to the national forest. It dead ends in the national forest. So it's about a mile, maybe 2 miles. So even walking, I'm thinking about how I can buy up the other properties that are for sale. And that is a sense of I want more privacy. I want more control over what happens in this valley. So I'm like scheming in my head, like, how can I get that property and how can we get that property? And there's 2 properties for sale. And if we got those 2 properties, how could we talk the other people out of their properties? So, I can't even take a walk in the woods without thinking something related to finance. So that's what I'm trying to stop is to not have everything be about purchasing or monetizing or, obsessing about bills that can't be paid today. Oh, this valley right here, this is my valley. Yes, exactly. I think those thoughts, like I want a whole valley all to myself where people can't come shoot guns all weekend and make me and the cats nervous. And yes, next week. But you know what I mean? Like, it's always in my mind. There's no point in me thinking about bills or pulling up my Excel spreadsheet for our budget if I don't need to pay a bill that day. I'm finding myself just pulling it up and looking at it and thinking, well, maybe I could rearrange this or maybe I could rearrange that. There's no point in that. Yeah. My valley. Mine. How ridiculous. Well, and I want to buy out the guy who sprays down at the main road. He makes me crazy. I want to buy him out. Anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was shocked yesterday at how pervasive it is. Almost everything I think has an underlying component of buying or selling or a dollar sign or money related to it somehow. I'd like to take a week off from that. So our last section is called trust. And it's a good word. And the first chapter is, Does It Love You? My friend Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer, that's a tough one, is a botanist and an author who teaches environmental biology at the College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Aaron's Place, Syracuse, New York. Her students are all... Aren't you from Syracuse, Aaron? Yahoo! Yeah, Syracuse. Her students are all fervent, young environmentalists, earnest as can be, desperate to save the world. Before they can get down to the business of world saving, though, 2 hours north, close enough. Oh, yeah, it sounds gorgeous. It really does. And Aaron's posted pictures of that area, and it's just beautiful. New York has some rural areas, or actually it looks like a lot of rural areas that are really gorgeous. So, before they can get down to the business of world saving, Robin asks her students these 2 questions. The first question is, do you love nature? Every hand in the room goes up. The second question is, do you believe that nature loves you in return, and every hand in the room goes down. At which point Robin says, then we have a problem already, and the problem is this. These earnest young world savers honestly believe that the living earth is indifferent to them. They believe that humans are nothing but passive consumers and our presence here on earth is a destructive force. They believe that humans are here on this planet by random accident and that therefore the earth doesn't give a damn about us. Ancient people didn't see it this way. Our ancestors always operated with a sense of being in reciprocal emotional relationship with their physical surroundings. Whether they felt they were being rewarded by Mother Nature or punished by her, at least they were engaged in a constant conversation with her. Robin believes that modern people have lost that sense of conversation, lost that awareness of the earth communicating with us just as much as we are communicating with it. Instead, modern people have been schooled to believe that nature is deaf and blind to them, perhaps because we believe that nature has no inherent sentience, which is a somewhat pathological construct because it denies any possibility of relationship. Even the notion of a punitive Mother Earth is better than the notion of an indifferent one because at least anger represents some sort of energetic exchange. We talked about this several months ago. It must have been back in October because it was deer season. We talked about how this land and places on the earth have an energetic signature, kind of. Like, you know, when you go to an area, if it fits you energetically or not. You feel comfortable and at home there, or you feel uncomfortable and edgy. I do think the earth has an energy of its own. I mean, it's measurable. So just like you feel different in other people's houses, can't stand Florida. That's me in Arizona. Me and Arizona do not get along energetically speaking. And then when I went to Seattle, the energetic experience was completely different than anything I've ever experienced. And here it feels more comfortable than Colorado, not politically, but, you know, energetically, earth-wise, it feels much more comfortable here. And I haven't had bronchitis since I've been here, so that's been a nice relief from my lungs. But remember we talked about how the longer East Texas is disgusting, yes, it's the armpit. How, you know, after being out here for a while, I kind of get a sense of when the animals are in the area and I need to drive slower. When there's possums on the side of the road. Poor possums, they're just dumb as they can be. They don't react fast, and I try to like extend my awareness. This sounds like total fruitcake stuff, but I do try to extend my awareness out ahead of me, and I ask, please, if there's any pitiful little possums on the side of the road, that they stay there. They're just dumb. I mean, I have come to a dead stop in the road and have them take several seconds to register that I was there. And then they literally hop off the ground, startled, and then they run away. But they don't process very quick. So I'm going to feel extra bad if I run one over. The birds in Las Vegas are suicidal with very good reason. It's a horrible place. They do hiss when they're scared. So anyway, I do feel like if you live in the city for too long, you lose your sense of when bad weather is coming. So just like the animals know when bad weather is coming, we used to know that. We used to be more in tune with our environment. And I don't believe the earth is indifferent to us. I also don't believe it is like considering what kind of weather I would like. But it's putting off an energy just like people put off an energy that we can tune into or not. If we want to be aware of that, we can consciously choose to practice that as a skill. Just like you're aware of another person's energy, you can become aware of the earth's energy depending on where you're at the time. You can get a sense of if it's the right place for you or not that way. So Without that sense of relationship, Robin warns her students they are missing out on something incredibly important. They are missing out on their potential to become co-creators of life. As Robin puts it, the exchange of love between earth and people calls forth the creative gifts of both. The earth is not indifferent to us, but calling for our gifts in return for hers, the reciprocal nature of life and creativity. Or to put it more simply, nature provides the seed, man provides the garden. Each is grateful for the other's help. So Robin always begins right there. Before she can teach these students how to heal the world, she has to teach them how to heal their notions of themselves in the world. She has to convince them of their right to even be here at all. She has to introduce them to the concept that they might actually be loved in return by the very entity that they themselves revere, by nature itself, because otherwise it's never going to work. Because otherwise nobody, not the earth, the students, or any of us, will ever benefit. Worst girlfriend ever. Chapter. Inspired by this notion, I now often ask aspiring young writers the same line of questions. Do you love writing? I ask. Of course they do. Duh. Then I ask, do you believe that writing loves you in return? And they look at me like I should be institutionalized. I've seen that look on students' faces before, and it's awful. I'm surprised she kept going. Of course not, they say. Most of them report that writing is totally indifferent to them, and if they do happen to feel a reciprocal relationship with their creativity, it's usually a deeply sick relationship. In many cases, these young writers claim that writing hates them, writing messes with their heads, torments them, and hides from them, destroys them, kicks their asses 10 ways to Sunday. As one young writer I know put it, for me, writing is like that bitchy, beautiful girl in high school who you always worshipped, but who only toyed with you for her own purposes. You know in your heart she's bad news and you should probably just walk away from her forever, but she always lures you back in. Just when you think she's finally going to be your girlfriend, she shows up at school holding hands with the captain of the football team, pretending she's never met you. All you can do is weep in a locked bathroom stall. Writing is evil. Well, that being the case, I asked him, what do you want to do with your life? I want to be a writer, he said. But we can get addicted to suffering. That is the next chapter, Addicted to Suffering. That's kind of what the 7-day drop it thing is about, I think, is recognizing where you're just compulsively chewing on a bone over and over. That's, wasting your energy. It's not getting you anywhere, and it's robbing you of energy that you could actually use to create something with. Are you beginning to see how screwed up this is? It's not only aspiring writers who feel this way. Absolutely. She is like a pure channel. It's not only... older established authors say the same dark things. Norman Mailer claimed that every one of his books had killed him a little more. Philip Roth has never stopped talking about the medieval torments writing inflicted upon him for the duration of his long-suffering career. Oscar Wilde called the artistic existence one long, lovely suicide. I adore Wilde, but I have trouble seeing suicide as lovely. I have trouble seeing any of this anguish as lovely. And it's not just writers who feel this way. Visual artists do it too. Here's the painter Francis Bacon. The feelings of desperation and unhappiness are more useful to an artist than the feeling of contentment, because desperation and unhappiness stretch your whole sensibility. Actors do it, dancers, and musicians most certainly do. Rufus Wainwright once admitted he was terrified to settle into a happy relationship because without the emotional drama that came from all those dysfunctional love affairs, he was afraid of losing access to that dark lake of pain he felt was critical to his music. And let's not even get started on the poets, right? So the poets are the worst. They're the worst martyrs and, tragic figures and at mercy to their work. Suffice it to say that the modern language of creativity, from its youngest aspirants up to its acknowledged masters, is steeped in pain, desolation, and dysfunction. Numberless artists Numberless artists toil away in total emotion and physical solitude, disassociated from other humans, but also from the source of creativity itself. Worse, their relationship with their work is often emotionally violent. You want to make something? You are told to open up a vein and bleed. Time to edit your work? You're instructed to kill your darlings. Ask a writer how his book is going, and he might say, I finally broke its spine this week. And that's if he had a good week. So here's our cautionary tale. And this is to say that this is ridiculous. I don't know where in history we developed this concept that it has to be like this. It certainly does not. I know people, I personally have worked with people who are bipolar, and there's a continuum of bipolar symptoms, and they're like, teetering toward the psychotic edge of things, and they will not take their medications because they're afraid they can't create without them. Not true. You might have to learn to train yourself to tap into creativity to create rather than have it just burst upon you at 3 a.m. and wake you up and not let you go back to sleep. But you can train yourself in that. And the importance of not living a life teetering on the psychotic edge of things is more important. So there's a lot of mentally ill people who use this, have developed this as an idea that they have to be suffering. And then there's not mentally ill people who become mentally ill because they think they have to suffer to create. So they kind of drive themselves nuts. One of the most interesting up-and-coming novelists I know these days is a clever young woman named Katie Arnold Ratliff. Katie writes like a dream. She told me she'd gotten blocked from her work for several years because of something a writing professor had said to her. Unless you are emotionally uncomfortable while you're writing, you will never produce anything of value. Now, there's a level at which I understand what Katie's professor might have been trying to say. Perhaps the intended message was, don't be afraid of reaching for your creative edge. Or never back away from the discomfort that can sometimes arise while you're working. These seem like perfectly legitimate notions to me. But to suggest that nobody ever made valuable art unless they were in active emotional distress is not only untrue, it's also kind of sick. But Katie believed it. Out of respect and deference to her professor, Katie took those words to heart and embraced the notion that if her creative process wasn't bringing her anguish, she wasn't doing it right. No blood, no glory, right? The problem was, Katie had an idea for a novel that actually made her feel excited. The book she wanted to write seemed so cool, so twisted and strange, that she thought it might genuinely be fun to do it. In fact, it seemed like so much fun it made her feel guilty, because if something was a pleasure to write, then it couldn't possibly have any artistic value, could it? So she put off writing that cool and twisted novel of hers for years and years because she didn't trust the legitimacy of her own anticipated pleasure. Eventually, I am happy to report, she broke through that mental obstacle and finally wrote her book. And no, it was not necessarily easy to write, but she did have a great time writing it. And yes, it is brilliant. What a pity, though, to have lost all those years of inspired creativity, and only because she didn't believe her work was making her miserable enough. Yeah. So heaven forbid anyone should enjoy their chosen vocation. I think sometimes even if we do enjoy our work, we can ruin it for ourselves out of the need for approval and to fit in with the pack that, is complaining about their job all the time. I've been on both sides of that. I've been the whiner and couldn't understand the people who enjoyed the work we were doing because I hated it so much, like that white hot heat of 1,000 suns kind of hate. And then I've been on the other side where I really did enjoy my job and I was annoyed by the people who were constantly complaining about it. Because when I was in a job that I hated, I left and found something else that honestly wasn't a whole lot different. But I was trying to do something about it. So, when you're enjoying your work, There's nothing wrong with that. And you don't have to pretend that you don't like your work in order to fit in the lunchroom. I mean, I don't think we ever get over that. That we can recognize it and we can work on it, but I think we all are kind of always thinking that we need to fit in until you let go of that entirely. But for me, I don't know if there'll ever be a time that there's not some kind of little bit of a twinge. Yeah, the whole lunchroom thing that we're, it gets ground into us from going to school for so many years. That, our biggest fear is that we're not going to fit in. If we're going to a new school, we'll just get frantic over trying to fit in somewhere, or a new job or anything. We just immediately want to fit in. And it takes a lot of time and training to train yourself out of that. And I think that's sometimes where this comes from. It's like fat chat. Women connect over diet talk, which just is insane to me, and I don't like it at all. I hate it when people do that. When two women meet in the bathroom and they immediately start chatting about, oh my God, I can't believe I ate that half a cracker. I probably just gained like 5 pounds, or, that kind of stuff. But it's an instant, easy way to connect to other females if you assume that the other female is on a diet because you're always on a diet. Yeah, I don't like that. But I think we can do it with our art too. We can connect with other artists, and we can fall into complaining when we actually really enjoy it. Yes, I think that's what happens. I think we just fall into whatever the common denominator of the group energy is if we're not careful. And I always think it's easier to go down than it is to go up. It's really hard to hold your energy up if you're surrounded by people who are whining and complaining, which is what makes mastermind groups and groups like this so important, is we remind ourselves that we really do have a choice. Like, we don't have to sit around and complain that we're always thinking about money. We can take and give ourselves a personal challenge to go 7 days without thinking about it. Not that you can't not think about it, but you know what I mean, like distracting yourself or whatever you want to give up for, whatever you'd like to shift for 7 days, pain, relationships, whatever it is. There's no victims in this group. And there's a lot of victims in the world who would rather spend their time commiserating with each other and feeling miserable and never doing anything about it. And that's not this group, and that's what I love about it so much, is that because I'm cynical and a bit of a whiner, that damn Byron Katie, she won't let us off the hook for anything. My tendency is to whine and complain. I notice what's wrong. Okay, love you. Have a great day. I see the flaws in things almost immediately, which is a good trait in some situations, but it's a bad trait to live life. Enjoy your taxi day. Tell them I said hello. It's not a good trait for life as a whole. So I have to have stuff like this. I have to have this daily practice, or I become cynical and whiny like all the time, like 24/7. And it can be super negative. And only focusing on what's going wrong and going completely blind to everything that's working. So even though there's we've got to replace the tires on Heath's truck. I don't know if you've ever bought truck tires. It's not fun. It's not a fun process at all. And it requires some actual thinking about money. But that's like logical thinking about money. That's shuffling numbers. That's not attaching a story to the money and whining and complaining about it. For real, it's like $500. But you got to do it. So there's no sense in whining and complaining about it. So having a group that, like Tanya said, you find yourself complaining just because other people are complaining and you want to participate in the conversation. That's totally normal. But it's better to surround yourself with people who are at least catching themselves complaining and going, oh, we could probably talk about something else. Or we can laugh about our complaining. I guess it's just I'm recognizing more and more the power of a group to help you stay in a space of gratitude, to help you stay in a state of appreciation by catching it before it gets too huge, by catching it before it becomes too chronic. So I really appreciate you guys showing up every day and sharing these books with me, because it helps me stay motivated. It helps keep my motivation up, which I suppose is the purpose of church for a lot of people. If they go twice a week, it helps keep their motivation and their commitment to their spiritual practice active. Before, I couldn't see any reason for church at all, like at all. But I do think that some people, and my sister's one of them, who greatly benefits from being around like-minded people. Your daughters noticed the difference? Wow, good for you. That's super cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's important. People around you will notice. It's not that we can't ever complain, because it's really lots of fun. But we need to be careful if our complaining is helping us find the humor in the situation, or if our complaining is just making us feel worse. Because I do think there's like fun complaining where you're like finding the humor in ridiculous things, finding the absurdity in life, and that's like uplifting. You feel better after that. But cynical complaining, always focusing on the negative, which is my preferred path, that does not make me feel better. That's different. That's completely different. So, that's all I have for you today. You don't have to buy these books, but just in case, Marianne Williamson and Everyday Grace is up next, and the Mind Body Code, Mario Martinez is up next. But I'll read them to you. Everyday Grace has been around for a long time. You could probably pick it up at the used bookstore for a couple of bucks if you wanted to. It's a good book. And then if you don't have Big Magic in your library, you probably should, because this is a great book that you can just, if you feel stuck, or do you ever do that thing where you have a question in mind, you need an answer, and instead of pulling a card or asking somebody for advice, you just pick up a few books and flip through them and see what kind of answers you get? That can be pretty productive. So this is a good book to have on hand for that. So, alrighty. That's all I have. Oh, I think she would love that. I think she really should read that book. She probably won't get a lot of it yet, but that's okay. It'll be in there, and then she'll have it. She can read it later. So, have a lovely day. Think about what you're not thinking about. Thanks, Nina. I'm glad you're here. Choose something, and don't try to stop thinking about it. You're just finding alternative things to think about. You're welcome. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to go back to bed. Love you guys. Take care. Yes, Tanya. Yes. Notice your thinking, then shift it over to something else. Don't tell yourself, damn it, I'm not supposed to be thinking about that. Because that won't work. You'll just think about it even more. Notice awareness, acceptance, shifting over to something else. Think about your core desired feeling if you've been doing that kind of work. Think about what you'd like to think about instead. And make yourself a list. I'm going to make myself a list. I've got it started because this is like a chronic thing. I didn't realize how bad it was, actually. So, see you later.